Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're going to be tackling Neil Gaiman's American Gods.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, and we've got some academic analysis to help us break down what makes this book tick.
Sounds good to me.
So American Gods throws us into a world where gods, like actual gods,
Right.
are living in modern-day America.
Okay, I'm intrigued already.
This crazy clash of old beliefs and new beliefs.
Oh, wow.
With the protagonist, Shadow, who's on this journey of self-discovery.
I remember that part, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you find most interesting about this whole concept?
I think for me, it's that juxtaposition you mentioned.
Right.
You've got these ancient figures like Odin,
Yeah.
Anansi, powerful beings.
Right.
But they're not off in some mythical realm, are they?
No.
They're right here, right now in America.
Yeah.
Grabbing a burger, working at the corner store.
Living very normal lives.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What if those stories, those myths we've heard, are closer to reality than we think?
Right. Right.
It really gets your mind going.
And the source we're looking at describes it as this blend of genres.
Oh, really?
Contemporary fantasy, magical realism, literary fiction, all mixed into one.
Wow, that's quite the combination. How does Gaiman even pull that off?
Well, that's what I'm hoping we can figure out today.
Okay.
But specifically, they call out the magical realism,
Yeah.
which, for anyone who doesn't know,
Right.
it's basically where the fantastical is just woven into everyday life.
Yeah, like it's totally normal.
Yeah, and Gaiman really does a great job of making the impossible seem totally believable.
I've got to agree with you there.
Like, for example, one minute Shadow's having a conversation with a god.
Uh-huh.
The next, he's just catching a bus like it's no big deal.
Yeah, like it's just an ordinary Tuesday.
Exactly. And it's that blurring of lines that keeps you, the reader, on the edge of your seat.
You never know what's coming next.
Right. It's not just telling us a story.
Right.
It's like he's asking us to question our own perceptions.
You mean like what we consider real?
Yeah. What if there's more to reality than we see?
He definitely plays with that idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think Shadow Moon's journey really comes into play.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, he gets out of prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's immediately thrown into this hidden world of gods and magic.
Okay, yeah.
So he's starting from a place of complete skepticism.
Like, what is going on?
Exactly.
This can't be real.
Yeah, his whole worldview is being shattered.
And that kind of mirrors us as readers, doesn't it?
Totally.
When we first encounter all these extraordinary ideas.
Yeah, we're kind of right there with Shadow going through it all.
Trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, and I think there's something really powerful about that.
Definitely.
But wouldn't you say that Shadow's journey goes a little deeper than just reflecting the reader's experience?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at first he's pretty passive, just kind of swept along by events. But as he learns more about this hidden world,
Right.
he becomes more active, starts making choices.
He starts to have an impact.
Exactly. And those choices directly affect the conflict brewing between the gods.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's like Gaiman is suggesting that to really take control of your own life, you need to understand belief.
And choose what you believe in.
Right. Exactly.
And speaking of understanding belief,
Yes.
the analysis mentions these coming to America interludes that are scattered throughout the book.
Oh, I love those parts.
Me too. What do you think their purpose is in the larger story?
Well, they give us this historical and mythical background.
Okay.
They show us how these gods actually ended up in America.
Interesting.
Like each one tells the story of a god arriving with immigrants.
Oh, I like that.
And it really highlights how beliefs are transplanted and then transformed when they land in a new culture.
That makes sense.
Like, for example, there's this one interlude with a Norseman offering a sacrifice to Odin
Wow.
on this newly discovered land.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah, and then there's another one where an enslaved African woman calls upon Anansi for strength and guidance.
So we see those different cultures and beliefs coming together.
Exactly.
It's like Gaiman is saying that America itself is this blend of so many different
traditions, culture.
and beliefs that have all kind of converged and evolved over time.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Absolutely. And this actually ties into a big theme of the book.
Oh, yeah, the idea of belief as currency.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Basically, the gods in American Gods, they exist because people believe in them.
Okay.
And the more belief they have, the more powerful they become.
Like it literally fuels them.
Exactly. It's this fascinating concept, isn't it?
For sure.
Makes you really stop and think
It does.
about what we believe in. Makes you think what we as individuals believe in, what society believes in, and how those beliefs really shape our actions.
Yeah.
Our relationships, even our perception of reality.
It's like this question that lingers long after you finish the book.
It really does.
We see these gods fighting for power fueled by belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, are there similar forces at work in our own lives?
Oh, absolutely.
Even if they're not as, as fantastical as Odin or Anansi.
That's a good point.
Right.
And it's interesting because this is where Gaiman introduces that whole old gods versus new gods thing.
Yeah.
He pits these ancient figures against these modern ideas.
Right, like media, technology.
Exactly.
It's not just a battle of gods, though, is it?
No, it's like much bigger than that.
It's more like an allegory for the changes happening in our culture.
Yeah, like tradition struggling to keep up with this modern world.
Well, exactly. And you have characters like Media.
Oh, yeah.
This goddess who just embodies the allure of television.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Technical Boy.
Yeah, he's creepy.
He's this unsettling character who represents the internet and the digital age.
It's always changing, always evolving.
Right. And it's like a reflection of how, like we said, tradition is just barely holding on in a world that's obsessed with the new and the now.
Absolutely.
Right. And the way Gaiman portrays those new gods, those modern ideas, he's not necessarily saying they're bad, but he definitely makes you think about the power they have over us.
Oh, yeah, the power to control our attention, to dictate our desires even.
Yeah, and what I also find interesting is that Gaiman doesn't just focus on the fantastical.
What do you mean?
Well, he also uses these larger-than-life characters to comment on America itself.
Oh, interesting.
It's not all, apple pie and fireworks.
Yeah.
There's this darker side to the American dream.
Sense of disillusionment.
Yeah, this undercurrent of something that's not quite right.
Like a crack in the facade.
Right. And the analysis we're looking at,
it
highlights how important the setting is to this. You have these roadside attractions, forgotten towns.
Yeah, those abandoned places.
They represent these faded dreams.
Games that never came true.
The histories that have been ignored or erased.
It's like he's saying, hey, there's more to America than what you see on the surface.
Exactly. Look beyond the shiny exterior.
See the shadows.
And acknowledge those forgotten stories, the parts of history that we'd rather forget.
Every place has those, doesn't it?
Every place has its secrets.
It's a powerful reminder.
And, speaking of those hidden depths, the characters themselves embody this duality, this contrast between light and shadow.
Okay, like who?
Well, we've talked about Shadow.
Right, the protagonist.
On his journey.
Yeah.
But what about his wife, Laura Moon?
Oh, Laura, she's an interesting one.
The analysis really focuses on her moral ambiguity.
What do you make of that?
Well, Laura's complicated.
Yeah, she's a mess.
Like, she's dead, but not really.
Because of that weird intervention.
Right. She can be so loving and loyal.
But then she can also be incredibly brutal.
Right. And her motivations are always shifting.
Makes you wonder what she's really after.
She's unpredictable.
And intriguing.
She throws a wrench in that whole good versus evil thing.
Totally.
And the fact that she comes back from the dead allows Gaiman to explore these themes of love, betrayal, and what it actually means to be alive.
Even when you're not really.
Exactly. You can't put her in a box.
She's too complex.
And that's what makes her so fascinating.
I agree.
And then on top of that, you have this whole cast of gods.
Oh, there's so many.
Each with their own unique personality and story.
It's a whole pantheon.
We talked about Odin and Anansi, but there's also Chernobog, the Slavic god of darkness.
Who's both terrifying and charming.
Right. And Easter.
Oh, yeah.
She represents this blend of pagan and Christian traditions.
Which raises some interesting questions about how belief systems evolve.
Exactly.
Like how they change over time.
Each god is like a different side of human nature.
And a reflection of a different culture.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that they're not perfect.
No, they're flawed.
They make mistakes.
They're experienced doubt.
They're just like us.
In a way.
And that makes them relatable, even though they're these larger-than-life figures.
It humanizes them.
And that's what makes American Gods so captivating.
Yeah, it's more than just a story about gods.
It's about what it means to be human.
To wrestle with belief, identity, the complexities of the world.
And it's worth pointing out
Yeah.
that American Gods has had a huge impact.
Oh, for sure.
It sparked conversations, inspired other works,
And even been adapted for television.
which has introduced it to a whole new audience.
It's become a phenomenon.
Yeah, it really feels like American Gods has become this cultural touchstone.
It has. It's sparked so many discussions.
Mm-hmm. It keeps resonating with people.
Years later.
Years after it was published.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about this book that has such a lasting impact?
You know, I think part of it is that Gaiman doesn't give us any easy answers.
Yeah.
Like, he lays out this whole world, right? All these beliefs, these conflicts, these amazing characters.
Right.
But then he just leaves us to figure it all out.
Yeah, he makes you think for yourself.
Exactly. He doesn't tell you what to believe.
Right.
He just presents all these different perspectives and lets you grapple with them.
So it's not just a story you passively consume.
No, not at all.
It's an active experience.
You're forced to engage with these big, big ideas.
About belief.
About identity.
But what's real?
And that makes it so rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you come away with more questions than answers.
Mm-hmm.
But those questions lead to some serious self-reflection.
Oh, absolutely.
You might even start questioning your own beliefs.
Yeah.
Or how much belief actually influences your life.
And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If you could actually sit down with one of these gods from the book,
Oh, that's a good one.
who would you choose?
That's tough. There are so many to pick from.
Right.
But I think I'd go with Mr. Wednesday.
Odin.
Odin himself.
Oh, that's a good choice.
He's such a mysterious figure.
Yeah, he's pulling all the strings.
Yeah, and I'd want to ask him about the future of belief.
Okay.
You know, in a world that's constantly changing.
Like ours.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
technology and globalization reshaping everything. How can those old ways survive?
Or do they even need to?
Do they need to adapt?
Those are great questions.
It's something we're all grappling with, isn't it?
Yeah, that anxiety about change, about the future.
It's definitely a theme in the book.
I think if I could choose,
Yeah.
I'd probably go with Anansi.
The trickster god.
Yeah, he's such a storyteller.
Weaver of tales.
And I'd want to hear his take on the power of stories,
Oh,
how
yeah.
they shape our beliefs,
Interesting.
you know, ultimately how they shape our reality.
Do stories create belief, or does belief create stories?
Ooh, now that's a head scratcher.
Wait.
Both great choices, though. And it just shows how rich Gaiman's world is.
There's so much to explore.
So many different perspectives to consider.
Even if we can't actually talk to these gods,
Right?
American Gods gives us the tools to think about these things,
Yeah.
to wrestle with the idea of belief in a world that wants easy answers.
Well, I think we can all agree that American Gods is a book that stays with you.
It really does.
And you've definitely given us a lot to think about today.
Glad to hear it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And for our listeners, if you're intrigued by what we've talked about today, definitely check out American Gods.
You won't regret it.
It's a story that will challenge you, make you think.
And maybe even change the way you see the world.
Thanks for listening, everyone.